I'm always fascinated by like what's happening as innovation happens. I feel like the gap currently, and I would put myself in the middle of, I'm an entrepreneur. I understand a little bit of the technology. How do we close the gap from people who really understand the technology, who may not be entrepreneurs, and then a bunch of my entrepreneur friends who are like, hey man, get back to me when you can push the easy button. Treading water is the same as drowning to people like you and me. You better start swimming. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Robb Green. Welcome to today's podcast. We've got Bryan McAnulty. McAnulty, I think I got that right, from Heights Platform. Excited to talk about Bryan and his business, how he got started, his experience of apps in the past, and then actually, really, we're probably going to nerd out a little bit on AI today. So welcome to the podcast, Bryan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Rob.
Yeah, I'm excited. So tell us a little bit about Heights Platform.
So Heights Platform, we're an all-in-one AI-powered online course creation and community building software. And the idea stemmed from my own needs and my own passions and desires of what I wanted to build, what I saw was a problem. And I realized issues with helping people learn. Like I'm passionate about learning growing up. And I realized I always am interested in finding out about things creatively. And I just felt like there was this big gap in the market that I saw these expert digital marketers where they create this webinar, they sell you this thing and this transformation, but you get inside whatever they sold you, and it's kind of like some videos behind the paywall. And I knew there was a way we could do better than that. And especially back when we started, it was essentially people would sell you the videos behind the paywall, and then if there was any kind of community area, it was like a Facebook group that they put you in.
Yep.
And I knew we could do better than that. And I see we've got these social media tools like Facebook, like Instagram, YouTube, all of them. They're designed to keep your attention and just keep you glued to the screen. And so I thought, well, why can't we take some of those same principles and use that to help people learn? Because the average creator who's selling an online course or coaching program, they're an expert at what they do, but they're not necessarily like an expert instructional designer or like at designing the actual way that they deliver that content to keep people engaged. And so I thought, well, why can't we take some of those principles that ended up being things like community and gamification and putting that into something that would allow people to easily build that and not have to worry about learning that part.
You started this, I think you said 2018, but really got rolling and launched in 2019, correct?
Yeah. So my business journey began out of high school in 2009, actually.
Okay.
And that was as like this graphic and web design studio. I never went to college. It didn't feel like the right thing for me. I felt like I wasn't going to learn what I wanted to learn. And I already knew how to do this design work. I'd been doing that as a teenager already. So I figured, well, I'm going to do that. I'll try to work on that and see how it goes. And I built these websites. The websites eventually turned into like web applications as things got more advanced. And then I've realized I don't really like working with clients. I want to mess things up, and you can't really do exactly what you're trying to do. So I thought about it and figured, how can we divide our time into like 50% client work, 50% experimenting on our own projects? And that led me to a bunch of different things that I tried, software products, e-commerce stores, digital products, and eventually then to the creation of Heights Platform. So that was in 2018 when we were creating it, and we didn't really promote it or have like any kind of big launch about it until over a year later, because there was just so much I had to do. It's people talk about building the MVP, the minimum viable product, but with this, and I do feel like there's a lot of software now that so much has been built that the MVP is not quite the same anymore. You just have to build a lot. It has to do so many things for the consumer before it's truly a minimum viable product. And so we wanted to have feedback, so we let people sign up for trials and everything, but we didn't really promote too much until we were finished building all those pieces of what it would do.
Okay. I mean, AI was not a known in the general public in 2019. So has that been a shift throughout the last few years, obviously, as you've developed this product?
It was, and it worked out really perfect because it wasn't something like, oh, we're just going to get on the AI hype train, but we've been thinking for years, how can we better support our customers? And what if we could create this solution where we could take everything that we knew and how we would try to guide someone one-on-one in coaching them to create a course, and then build that into our product to have our product actually be guiding them and helping them. And then ChatGPT came out shortly after GPT-4 came out, and suddenly it was like, wow, well, AI can do this now. We can actually use AI, and maybe this will work. And it did. And from that, we built Heights AI Coach, which is the first autonomous coach for creators. And so it seems like it happened kind of quick, but there was a lot of planning that AI finally enabled the possibility of creating it.
I always think about it this way. I've got so many things in my head, and I'm not a good writer, so it's difficult sometimes to get those things out of my head down into, and I've never done a course, but into information that could be someone could learn from, right? So it's better when I talk through things or I write on a whiteboard. Is that kind of the purpose of the Heights AI Coach, is to extract and help people extract the information from their brain and develop the course?
That's a good question. So there's two parts actually. We have
Okay.
Heights AI Coach is functioning like your coach, and then there's Heights AI Chat, and that's functioning like your assistant. Because we also
Okay.
thought, as an individual creator, most of our customers are individual, like solopreneurs. The two people that you first usually want to hire is an assistant and a coach. So we thought, okay, we're going to build you an AI version of these. And Heights AI Chat is like this co-pilot assistant where you can ask it questions about how Heights platform works. And there's a lot of tools like that where it's like an AI chat support type solution. But we go further than that, because you can ask it about how Heights platform works. You can ask it about how to market and promote your course.
Hmm.
And it's actually trained on all the content we've written or said. And then it actually can act as your assistant, because you can actually ask it to just make those changes. So you don't have to ask it, how can I figure this out in the software? Just tell it to do it for you.
Wow.
And so you can say, for example, okay, I've got this guitar course, take my guitar course, set the price to $200, have it launched in 30 days, and set it to published. And then it'll just respond and say, here's what I'm going to do. Is that okay? And you click OK, and it makes the changes for you. So you don't even
Wow.
have to learn software anymore. And I think many products will go that direction. And then Heights AI Coach is like your marketing coach. And so what it's doing is not directly in the product. Like Heights AI Chat can understand, like give you feedback on the lessons and things like that, and tell you, hey, maybe you want to add this to it, or here's some potential action items that you might want to put into this lesson. And Heights AI Coach is more like, okay, well, here's your information about your business model. This is your social media following, your email list. This is what your goals are for the next 30 days. Now, looking at all of that, looking at what you've created, here are some tasks and recommendations for the next week. And what's cool about that is you can ask ChatGPT to be your coach, but it doesn't really know all of the context about what you're doing. And most people, you probably know, sometimes they don't know even the question that they should ask,
Right.
and to get what they need. And so it's hard to use ChatGPT in quite the same way. And what Heights AI Coach will do is it actually asks you the questions. So
That's
it will
awesome.
ask you questions instead of you talking to it. And then it creates these tasks and recommendations every week. And so my favorite part about it is you actually will get those in an email as well. And so you can say, hey, I got an email from my coach this morning, well, it's my AI coach, and it gives you those recommendations.
So I got a lot of questions around this. Number one, who is your typical customer for Heights platform? Like, it's a solopreneur? It's somebody who's got some expertise in a certain niche, and then they just want to create a course and then market it. Is it somebody who's already got a course and they don't know how to market it? Like, what, or they want to refine the existing course? Like, what do you see as your typical customer?
Sure. So it's about 50-50 of like
Okay.
people who have never sold online before, but they have this passion of something that they know that they want to teach people. And then people who have sold something online or are trying to grow their business. And sometimes like people think about our platform, a question we get from people kind of starting out and wondering like, what is this platform? How's it different from other things? Is they look at tools like Udemy and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more like a marketplace. So you can create content, you're selling it, but then like they have the audience still, not you.
Yep.
And like they're choosing the price, what's going to be on sale, and they keep most of the money. With Heights, it's your own business. So it's your website. It's branded with your logo. Like people don't even know that you're using Heights at all.
Okay.
And then you have control of the pricing. It's your audience. It's your specific students and members. And so you're really building your own business and you keep all the money. We don't take any transaction fees.
You guys are just it's a subscription model then. They're paying you to utilize the
Yeah,
platform
subscription
essentially.
model. So it's just a
Perfect.
flat monthly fee for the plan that you choose, and that's it.
Um, okay, so you're creating. I love businesses that support entrepreneurs. First of all, I'm a biased entrepreneur, I guess, in that regard. So I love that you're doing that. Um, but I want to dig into the AI piece of this. So Agentic AI, which and I'll butcher this probably, so correct me where I'm wrong, Bryan. But how I think about it is I've done a little bit. I've played around with a little bit. You know, I've installed AutoGen. I've looked at Crew AI. Is I think about it like each of those AIs has a specific, I've imbued them with a skill, and I'm imbuing that skill and I'm defining what that role is. So that role could be personal assistant, it could be researcher, it could be the Heights chat, it could be the Heights AI coach, right? And then you imbue them with some skills, Python assistant, right? It's a common one, right? And then
Mhm.
what I've learned at least is that I see that currently there's human intervention, but as we move forward, they're going to have the conversation without you. It's almost like a team of employees who have a very currently a narrow skill set, and they're doing the work for you and giving you give an input, they give you an output. Obviously, there'll be less human intervention as the software and the AI improve. Am I even close to how to think about agentic AI?
Yeah, you're really close. I think that that is pretty spot on actually. And
Okay.
the thing that the development community and everyone's starting to understand better now that I think we didn't understand earlier last year is that if you take it and just say, okay, do this thing for me, figure it out, and then you put it in a loop trying to do that, it just keeps going forever and you don't really get great results. And so the key is what you mentioned there, that it has to be very specific tasks that you are defining of what it should do. And what we found is like Heights AI Coach, for example, it's not like one agent thing that we just say, just keep going forever. It's formed of all these different roles and these different subtasks of what
Mm.
it's constantly doing. And so that's the way to make it work. But I think once you understand this, what's really powerful is as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you can then do that in your business. And anyone who, especially entrepreneurs and business owners who have hired people and delegated, you're in this incredible position to leverage AI because basically it's like writing an SOP or standard operating procedure. If you
That's what it
can
feels like to
document
me.
the process well, yeah, exactly. So if you can document the process well, you just have to give that to AI. And if it's a complex process, sometimes you have to just break it down into a couple parts. So like, okay, this part of like the research, this is one prompt. And then this AI is just going to constantly do that. It's going to send that now to the next part. And this is another prompt of this is the next step. And so when you do it that way, the AI is able to kind of pay both better attention and give a better result on the things that it's working.
I mean, again, I'm not a programmer. I don't have any skills in that area. But I was able to, when custom GPTs first came out, like the second week it came
Mm.
out, I was able to create my own GPT that writes Amazon listings. And in all honesty, it's in maybe 20, 30 minutes to just train it on the information I already had from years of doing this. And it writes Amazon listings better than any employee I've ever had. I gave it a very narrow window of focus. I prompted it right, and it trained it on some data that I had intern. I mean, without that context, it's worthless, right? So giving it that context, and I couldn't believe. Well, I think this was like December. I couldn't believe how good the output was. It blew me out of the water.
Yeah.
I was surprised. So I see this. This feels inevitable to me, Bryan. Do you feel the same way that this is where all business is going in this agentic workflow? In that it either on a supportive role or maybe task oriented role, the tedious tasks, the things that we wait for someone to do, maybe on our domestic team or our overseas team. It just feels like this is happening now, but in the future, it's going to be everywhere. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, 100%. I think like this is not a hype thing at all. Like this is really happening. And I think that the individual like solopreneur and the small teams, like those companies and teams and entrepreneurs are in the best position to succeed because
Mm.
you don't need tens of thousands of people anymore. You can have this small team of people delegate things to AI to grow. And so I've been having my team, whether they're technical or not, figure out how can they basically delegate away their job to AI. And people's roles have shifted in a way. So like I'd say I chat that does thousands of support questions for us every single month now, but we still have a support team, and it's actually better for our support team because the questions we get are more complex of like how can we actually help someone instead of like where do I find this button. And so that's one thing, but our support team's role now, since there's less questions, has shifted to
Mm.
looking at feedback that the AI gets and then improving its data and its knowledge for the future so it can answer things better. And yeah, it's really incredible. So today I was amazed by it again. And even though I've built all these things already, that we took this process that was taking us like 10 hours, I guess, a month of work, and now it's going to just be automatic from AI to do it for us. And we can actually do it with GPT 3.5. We don't even need GPT 4 to do it. And we have it just running completely automated. And every month, the total cost for that is like about 5 cents, I think, for the thing to run.
For 10
It's
hours of
it's
work.
ridiculous. Yeah, 10 hours of work, and this costs 5 cents. And it's a task that like a research type task where it feels like, oh, this is annoying, like it shouldn't have to be that the person's even doing this. But there was not really a way to do it before because we had to figure out, like in this example, looking at some of our leads and like, okay, what are they building their course about, and learning more about them. And now the AI just figures all of it out for us.
I love this stuff. I'm always fascinated by like what's happening as innovation happens. I feel like the gap currently, and I would put myself in the middle of, I'm an entrepreneur. I understand a little bit of the technology. How do we close the gap from people who really understand the technology, who may not be entrepreneurs, and then a bunch of my entrepreneur friends who are like, hey, man, get back to me when you can push the easy button. Because I don't know anything about LLMs. I don't know how they work. I don't know how the AI works. Just give me the easy button I can push, and I can now have an agent who is a researcher, for example, right? How do we close that gap, or how should an entrepreneur maybe think about closing that gap?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's all about understanding the importance of context. And the way, like I'm disappointed when I see even people who are AI developers say like, oh, like ChatGPT is horrible, or AI is bad. Because I'm sitting here thinking like it does my work for me. Like, what do you guys want? Like, and what I think is happening in these scenarios is people are expecting it to just do everything, and
Yeah.
not need that context. But you have to remember when you send this first message to ChatGPT, it's the equivalent of like walking to some random person on the street and saying whatever that thing is to them. And so like they don't know that they're supposed to be an employee at your company. They don't know what your company does. They have no idea why they should do the thing that you just outlined for them. And there's all this kind of like implicit knowledge that a company has and that you have with your own teammates that it just doesn't exist when you just say something to AI for the first time. So you've got to be really clear in documenting all these things exactly the way that you want it, and assume that you're talking to somebody who has no context at all, because that's how it works. And I think when people understand that, then they will get much better results. And once you have like one or two magical experiences of understanding that, then I think you're kind of good to go. But the challenge now that I guess AI companies have to solve is it's tedious to put that information in. And well, like you or I might say, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't take that long. You can go and type this out and then it's done forever. You'd have to do almost the same thing with a real employee anyway. But it is tedious. And so if people have a way that they can get that context to the AI easier, I think like right now, ChatGPT on the web, you still have to type to it. You can't talk to it directly on the web yet. You can on the phone.
Right.
But things like that, I guess, make it harder that people have to type out all of this information and figure out how to organize it. But when you look at just ChatGPT, for example, it's just a small input box. So you're not expecting to like give it a page of text every time that you're preparing. But in reality, that's usually the way that it works better when you just started off, hey, here's everything you need to know. So like custom GPTs were a good step in that direction, I think, by OpenAI, and my team uses those a lot. And a missing piece there that I'll share for everyone if it's helpful is that the custom GPTs can connect to your own applications. And I think people don't know this. Some people have heard, oh, you can do it with Zapier, but you can do it just with a GPT and instructing it how to do it. And there is this feature at the bottom called actions when you're creating a custom GPT.
Okay.
And you can click on that, and then it has these couple fields and talks about a schema or something. And so you might think, okay, I don't know what this is, but then there's another button there that is for the Actions GPT that OpenAI made, and this is their own GPT that understands how to create these actions. And then action is like basically documentation for connecting to another software's API. And so if you're not technical, you can still do this by you just find like Google API documentation for whatever software you use. So like we use ClickUp for our project management. Just
Sure.
Google API documentation ClickUp, find that page, and then paste it into the GPT, either the link or the text, and then it will write it all out for you and figure it out. You put it in there, and then you have to put in like your password or authentication, and now it can access that app. So when
Wow.
the at mention feature came out for GPTs, I was like, this is so much better now because you can have these different GPTs actually communicate within a single conversation thread. And what we do here is we've got one GPT that has access to our support tickets, and it has access to web browsing, and it has access to our knowledge base. So it can use all these things as tools and actions. So we can say, hey, check my latest email, and then it can go look at that. It can click on any links from that email by like using the browsing tool, and then it will draft a response. But before it drafts a response, it's going to search our knowledge base to make sure it's giving actual relevant information and not just making something up. And then like in a workflow, usually there's other steps that you have to do. So like, let's say it drafts a response and now, okay, there's more information that we need to know about this customer. We've got another GPT that actually connects to our software. It'll then load up the information about the customer. We can say, okay, grant them this course, for example. It'll go and do that. And then let's say, all right, now we've done these things, but we need to follow up with this customer later. Then we can mention a third GPT, which is our ClickUp GPT, and say, okay, summarize everything here and then put a task in our ClickUp for us. And it can go and do that. So that's all within just ChatGPT. You don't have to pay for any other services. And I think most
Wow.
people don't know that that is even
I
possible.
didn't know that, and I made my own custom GPT, and I didn't know that that existed. So that's awesome. Because this is a completely for me now. Forget all the listeners. This is just my own personal benefit. I tend to overanalyze, and so what ends up happening is I don't want to build on a platform that's not going to be there. You mentioned Zapier. They launched Zapier Central recently. So I was like, okay, so do
Yep.
we go to Zapier Central and we start using Zapier as the pipeline or the bridge between all these APIs and these actions, right? And we use on their platform. Or do we go to Crew AI, which requires some programming? Or do we use AutoGen? Or what platform do we build on that's going to be here in 6 months or 12 months that is scalable to be able to build out these workflows? Agentic AI workflows is how I think about it. Any thoughts on that,
Yeah. Um,
Bryan?
yeah, definitely. It's a great question. And like we've been looking into these tools ourselves
Okay.
because even though we could just build it, I want a solution for the non-technical members of my team to be able to just do it themselves. When they think, okay, I wish there was a way for me to automate this, instead
Yep.
of them saying, hey, Brian, can we like put this in the development pipeline? I want them to just be able to do it themselves.
Yes.
And so we've looked at, yeah, Zapier Central, Lindy.ai is one,
Okay.
Super Agent, um,
Super
Agent
agent.
Hub. There's a few different ones. Some are
Yep.
slightly more technical, some slightly less. Zapier Central, of course, like Zapier's got the benefit that they just connect to everything. And I do like that. Um, but yeah, they haven't announced pricing on it and things like that yet. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit worried of what it might actually cost. And like, is it going to make sense to use that or just build our own thing? But I do think that they're going in the right direction with this because
Okay.
everything I just said about the custom GPTs, that's great. But there are three problems with custom GPTs. One
Okay.
is that they're still a little bit too hard to make. You didn't know about the actions feature. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people listening didn't know about the actions feature. And doing that, it requires clicking on the other GPT, then pasting the API documents. It's a little bit awkward. And number two is they're not multiplayer. So like, it's not like in Slack, you can have your other teammates all talking together in the thread. It's just you and those GPTs. You can bring in the other GPTs, but it's still a single human. And then number three is it's not triggered or agentic by something else. You have to message the GPT. And so Zapier Central is a potential solution for all three of those things, which is what I like. And right now we're testing that with, we built a Slack bot with it. And so the Slack bot has access to, I think, our ClickUp and things similarly. But what's great about this is because we always find ourselves in Slack, we talk about a thing and there's this thread going on. And then I asked my team, I said, can you make a task for that, like in our ClickUp? And so somebody's got to go and like summarize all those details that we just realized has to be an actual work task and create that. So now the Zapier Central like bot that we made there, it will have context of, it just gets everything from every Slack thread. And when we mention it, it'll already have all the past messages of that thread. So we don't have to like re-explain it. We just say, hey, go make a task about this, and it'll do it for us. So that's been really helpful. And my plan so far with that is how can we connect this like Slack bot to a bunch of different things so it can really just do things for us whenever we ask.
So you, just to simplify, I think if I get this right, you're mentioning at ClickUp, for example, in the Slack channel.
Yeah, like the mention is the trigger for the Zap in the Zapier Central.
Yep.
And so far what we did is a little bit of a hack around it, but to give it the memory and know everything going around in Slack, we're saving every Slack message to a Zapier table. And then the Zapier Central bot, when it gets triggered, before it responds, we're saying like, hey, look up what your memory is, like learn what you're supposed to know. And it goes and reads everything in the current thread before it responds.
We just lost all of our non-technical listeners there for a Zapier table and Zapier Central and a trigger. So
if you've used Zapier and Zapier Central, you'll know what we're talking about. It is a little bit awkward. And I talked with them about that. And I said it would be great if there was just a button that said like, I want a Slack bot with Slack memory. So hopefully they'll be able to work something out like that. That would be really cool.
I think you're exactly on the right page, Bryan. You need all of your employees, because you need all of your employees to be able to do this themselves, right? They can't come to you or your development team. I mean, we need all of our people to be empowered to be able to do this. And their job, in my opinion, should be, how do I utilize AI to make it my job less tedious? And it's not just the tedious part either. It's also, we forget. We're humans. We forget. Well, guess what? The trigger rarely forgets. So the bot is going to do work 24 hours a day and not take time off. And we don't have to worry. I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure your business too, people forgot to do something. And it's been an expensive mistake where we forgot to do something, which just happened. It happens to us. So it feels like it's the tedious tasks, but also the consistent tasks, repetitive tasks you talk about. You're saving 10 hours of employee cost.
I would say it's those tedious tasks, but then it's also for things like brainstorming and decision making.
Okay.
So what I've realized is a lot of companies, when you think about a big project that you're working on, it's not the actual work getting done that is the reason it takes so long, but it's all the decisions that you have to make in between. And so one of the first GPTs I made was this decision analysis GPT that you tell it what you're trying to figure out, and it's going to give you this big like pros and cons analysis and kind of help you make that decision. And I think this is another way that AI can be really powerful. Like, stop thinking about it as a way to like generate or write text for you, and start thinking about it as this like discussion partner almost, that you can get to these decisions faster because you've got somebody you can talk to at any time, and you can give them all the information they need to help kind of guide you in whatever way that you're trying to figure out. And
I love that.
So
framework.
My goal is, how can we make these decisions faster, remove these tedious tasks, and then ideally everybody should be able to work on like the highest level, like biggest picture thing that's going to actually move the business forward.
I have not heard anybody call it a discussion partner. I love that framework. I use the mobile ChatGPT app as a discussion partner when I'm driving, because I can talk to it, right? So I can pull up my phone and I talk to it, and I go back and forth with ChatGPT on a regular basis because I'll have a random thought, and I'll just start talking to it, and it's absolutely amazing. Like the quality, and this is where I think a lot of people get wrong. They want it to be perfect. And it's kind, I think about it kind of like when you hire an employee, right? And maybe you're really good at a specific role. My goal is if they're 80% as good as me, and if I'm really good at it, that's a win. Like, preferably they're better than I am. That's the dream, right? I want everybody to be better than I am at everything they do. But too often that the benchmark of 100% or better is difficult to reach in employees, right? And I think a lot of people are giving an unfair measurement to the current state of AI. They want it to be perfect. It's not perfect, and none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. So I think it's so impressive to me to how far it's come, especially when you seed it with the right prompts and the right framework, the right role, how to think of itself. You are this.
Yeah, it's all about the information that you put into it. So it can be useful, and then you can take everything like you discussed, like in the car or whatever, and then you can go have it refine that, and then you can start a new conversation or whatever once you've refined that. But another problem that people get into, and maybe misunderstanding about the technical part of it, is that AI is, because it has no context, it's trying to kind of mimic or role play whatever role you're putting it in. And often people kind of subconsciously or completely mistakenly put it into this role that they don't want it to be. And an example of this is if you've had ChatGPT say something to you that's like completely wrong, and you go down this conversation with it and you're like, nope, you're wrong. And it just can't get it quite right. And you can probably fix that if you start the first message better with better context. And so often, if it goes down this path for you, it's better for you to go back and you can click edit in ChatGPT on that message and then just fix or improve the knowledge that you put in that first prompt, add another sentence or describe whatever you wanted more cleanly, and then have it run again and then go from there. Because if you take it out of like its position as an expert and put it into this other position of like the thing that just can't get it quite right, it's going to keep acting like that. And so a better, like, I'm not sure how well this would work or how much it's studied, but like it would almost be better to respond to it and say, oh, you're wrong there, but I know you were just testing me because actually you knew about this thing, and then see if it actually gives a better answer. And I think it would sometimes, because you want to keep it in this position of being an expert. And OpenAI and all the different AI companies are trying to do that. But it's really important that if you could put in the perfect words in the beginning, then the output that you'll get is going to be much better than if you put in a mess of things.
It reminds me of something that's happened the last couple of years for me. I was advising a startup, and they hired some of the smartest people they could hire. A large budget. We were e-commerce, creating software and acquiring brands and stuff like that. And what I noticed was most of them lack context around what we were building. And I have deep knowledge in that. So I was an advisor to the business, but there wasn't enough context around it. And the business struggled a little bit because of that, right? Some of the people struggled because of it. And it really hammered home the value of context. I don't think I really valued context properly until I had that experience. Because it's like, what do they call it? The curse of knowledge. It's right. You know it like the back of your hand. You're like, oh, everybody knows this, right? Because you know it. You're like, I assume we all have the same, but we don't. And so you have this curse of knowledge. And it was so fascinating to me, no matter how smart you are, without the right context, whether it's human or AI, it can't get to the result that, an optimal result would be. You have to have that context. And so it's fascinating for me. It probably prepared me to see it in AI a little better about making sure we seed it with the right context, because I've seen it with humans. Without the right context, there's just no way to get the right result out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting because I think when you have this large organization, you can't really see that as easily until you really dive in there and try to figure out what's wrong. But with AI, you're there firsthand. So you see it give you the answer back and you're like, well, that's not right. Why is this not right? Is this thing not good? But yeah, that's interesting. And the curse of knowledge is something that we kind of mentioned the course creators, because
Really?
there are a lot of people, who are like, there's these people who are beginners and are worried, well, can I actually teach somebody? Do I really want to teach this, but am I qualified to teach this? Because I know there's somebody else out there, they're they're a multimillionaire, or they're the number one at
Mm,
this thing, and I'm not there. Can I teach this? And we tell people that often it's better if you're in that position, because you want to get the person from point A to point B. And if the absolute expert in the world is the one teaching somebody who's a complete beginner, you've forgotten a million times over, like all the mistakes that you had, all the roadblocks along the way. And so you have to kind of like remember those things to even be able to help the person. Whereas if you just got through all of that and solved those problems, you're in a better position to help the person who's now trying to go through that themselves.
that's a great framework. When I have deep knowledge about something, I should never write an SOP because I skip steps. Because it becomes an assumption, right? It's like, oh, of course you know how to do this because you know it so well. And it's a person who's got moderate level of experience in something, has lived it more recently usually, and understands those steps that they had to go through more recently than someone that did it maybe 5 or 10 years ago. You forgot more stuff about that, and you skip those steps. So we have a rule around here that I
Yeah,
should
exactly.
never create an SOP. So if you had it, if you had advice around that, do you think in current state Zapier Central may be the best like platform to kind of start building on, and then migrate to something down the road that might be better? Thoughts?
It seems like the combination of the most robust and the most like friendly to non-technical users. So yeah, I would probably say out of the ones that we've tried, it's the easiest to recommend. But again, I don't know about the pricing. My worry is that you
Yeah.
end up needing like the Zapier subscription, Zapier Central, Zapier tables, and like all these different things. And it goes from, oh, this is going to be $30 a month to, oh, this is at least $500 a month. And then it's kind of out of reach for some younger entrepreneurs.
Well, I'm gonna play with it. I've been looking at like Bardine, and I've played with AutoGen, and I've been trying to figure this out. So I think maybe I'd love to get your take on this. I mean, we've gone all over the map here. We've gone a little off your business, but I think this is fascinating to me, and I think a lot of people want to learn about it. All my friends that own e-commerce businesses, we just had this conversation this morning. A couple of us, most of them just don't. They're just waiting. Like, let me wait until someone actually figures this out, and then I will pick a
Mm.
platform and implement. I don't think that's the best model. I think you have to become more aware of it. Most business owners I know have not implemented any AI into their workflows or into their business at all. So I think it's two parts. It's one who's someone who's like me, who's very interested in moving this forward fast, and versus someone who's maybe hasn't even started yet. Is there anything that you think about, like how do you implement it fast? I guess. I mean, obviously you pick a platform, you get going on it, but do you have a framework or a model around that? On how it sounds like you already have one for your own team. How do you think about that as the technology evolves so quickly?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of what we talked about today. If you follow those principles and that idea, then you'll get good results from it. And like my team has been able to help us with like very important prompts that are parts of our product, even though they're not technical teammates themselves. And I think most people have the wrong idea because they look at AI and they think, oh, it generates content. And so, like, the most common things you see are an AI summary, or like AI is going to write something for me. But you can think of it that, like, it's intelligence. It can make decisions and reason on these things. So you give it the process of what you need done, and then figure out what are the outputs at these different steps that you need. And it's often like that's where you get the results, just breaking down the processes that you have, not
Mm.
figuring out how can we add this like summary or like something to write a blog for us or that kind of thing.
We use Monday.com, which is very similar to ClickUp. It just makes me feel like I want to connect Monday to ChatGPT and help me figure out how to take those tasks and build into a custom GPT is what it feels. That feels like the connecting that to the training documents and the SOPs that we already have existing, and putting that into custom GPTs.
Yeah, yeah, I think, I mean, I don't know about Monday. ClickUp does have like an AI feature,
Okay.
but I haven't, we don't use it ourselves. They want you to pay extra for it, and I think it's gotten a lot better, but it wasn't at least quite there for anything in particular we needed. But I think the challenge is with a large amount of data and with not knowing what the particular context is that you're dealing with. Like
Yeah.
you have maybe one person's project management is like tens of thousands of tasks, and another's is like thousands of documents, but not that many tasks. Like, how do you organize what information you're feeding to the AI and when? And that's where it gets more difficult. I guess the more general the application is, the harder the time they're going to have in figuring out how to make the tool kind of work for everyone. But I would say for a lot of business owners, if you're in a vertical of like a more specialized field, you're in such an excellent position to figure out a way to do that, and it's easier for you. So for us, like Heights AI Chat, it's about course creation and community building, and there are ways we can be more specific and break things down into what it's going to do, because there's certain things we know that it's just not going to ever have to do because it's just not related to that. Um, so yeah, I would say the number one thing is look at the processes that you have, figure out where you can break those down into different smaller steps if you haven't, then give the AI the context and think about having it solve those problems and work on things for you instead of like making summaries or just generating content.
That's great advice. So let's get back to Heights platform and talk about kind of where you want to take that business. So you've had it for a few years. What do you see for the future for that business? And I know I want to talk about sales and marketing of that platform. So where do you want to take it? What is your vision for the business?
So I want to grow it, but I'm comfortable with it not being the fastest growing of
Okay.
our competitors out there because we are a bootstrap company and I want to stay that way. And so it's important to me. I think maybe more than some entrepreneurs, I thought first about what do I really want to do? What am I passionate about? And what's the lifestyle I want to create? And then how can I do something that is fulfilling with all these constraints kind of? Um, so I think maybe there's a lot of people who think about that after. They just focus on how can I make money? How can I grow as fast as possible? And then later on they realize, well, what do I actually want to do? What's fulfilling to me? So I feel unfortunate and I'm glad that I found that out for myself already. And I want to make sure I don't lose that. So our goal is to, yeah, see how we can grow and impact as many people as possible while being able to do what we enjoy. And I rather have a small team that we enjoy working together, we know each other, than like a team of hundreds or thousands where it's like, who's this person? When did we hire this guy? So I really do enjoy working with my team now. We're a fully remote team, and we meet up once a year in a different country or a different place, and spend a week together. But other than that, we're all just fully remote. And yeah, I think when AI became such a big thing in ChatGPT announcement, it really got me thinking, and there was a lot of optimism, but also a lot of fear. Like, what is this going to turn into?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to say that my end conclusion is that I am really optimistic, not only about AI in general, but about course creators and community builders and individual entrepreneurs, because now you went from have this idea, got to learn all these different things to figure out how to make it happen, and then I can go and create it. And now AI is imagine, create. You don't have to do the middle part as much anymore because you've got AI that can make images, AI that can work on video, AI that can do music, and all these different pieces now. So instead of having to hire a bunch of people or learn these things yourself, you can have AI work on it with you. And I think we're going to see more individual creator businesses that are both bigger than ever before and and more impactful, able to do more than they ever have. So I think it's a really exciting time and really exciting space to be in. And I feel like also it's working out well for us that we've always had this community focus in like
Mm.
how can we connect people together, because after you go through and you learn what you've learned in the course, you want to connect with other people. There's so much value in going through that experience with others who are doing it at the same time and learning from your peers as well. And I think that kind of human connection is going to be even more important with AI, and also augmented by AI in ways that AI can kind of help you connect with the right people.
It sounds like your business approach reminds me of 37 Signals, Base Camp.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love those guys.
Okay,
Yeah, so
that's what
yeah,
it sounds
Heights
like.
is also built on. We're built on Ruby on Rails as well. The
Okay,
framework that they created.
okay.
And yeah, I love their approach with everything. So yeah, very much similar philosophies there.
I think it's very rare. You've got a certain amount of clarity. You're adamant. I'm not taking money, right? I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay bootstrap. I think it's a difficult question for a lot of people, right? Do I want to raise money or do I want to be bootstrapped? But I love the amount of clarity that you have around that. And you're like, hey, listen, I've defined my life. This is the life I want to lead. This is what I want to do. I'm going to stay in my lane, and I'm not going to get seduced, for lack of a better word, by the additional capital, and I got to grow at all costs and forget making money, and let's go that route. It's refreshing to see, because I don't see that very often. So knowing all of that, what do you want? I mean, what do you see? Like, what is a goal of, like, I want to grow 20% a year, 30% a year, or does the growth not really matter if you're serving your customer base the way you want to?
Um, I mean, it matters because I want to be able to help more people. And I
Okay.
think when we can help more people and when we can earn more, then it'll still give us the capacity to, if we have more money lying around, we can figure out things we can do with it to be helpful to people. But yeah, I'm interested in definitely making sure that I maintain the constraints of being able to do the things that I enjoy. And like, I love working on the product. I am definitely like a product guy rather than a marketing guy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to take myself out of the position where now I'm only the CEO. I don't get to work on the product at all anymore. I'm just managing this team of a few hundred people, and I don't want to have to deal with that. And I think now more than ever, it's possible for me to have this like hybrid role that I am the founder and CEO of the company, but I'm also building the product, where now I've got AI to help with all these other things. I think there's less need for separate like management only positions,
Yep.
um, if it can be done right. And yeah, I just want to see kind of like to the best of my own potential, what can I create from that?
I love that. Do you have a KPI that you measure success by?
Um, not there's not like a hard number of like it's got to
Okay.
be X% per year or something like this, but some metrics that we like and that are difficult to track perfectly, so we're trying to improve them, but is like time to first student or time to first member for our
Hmm.
customers, and time to first dollar. So when can they get their first customer? When can they get their first dollar? And what I've seen, like my biggest insight in having the privilege of seeing thousands of creators building on a platform, is the reason that people fail. It's not that they have bad marketing. It's not that they have bad branding. It's not that they have bad product. You can have one of those things right. You only need one of those things to be right, and you can have a successful business. The reason that they fail is that they just didn't launch. So they built something
Really?
and it's great, but they don't really put it out there. Or if they put it out there, they didn't really launch it. So they said, okay, it's out there, but then they kind of gave up after that. So like maybe like they released it, and the initial like email blast or something they sent out didn't really do what they wanted it to, so they didn't really continue. And I want to help those people kind of like in some ways understand the reality of what to expect, but also
Mm.
understand how they can get to the next step and get them those quicker wins. So the people, like, because I just hate to see someone who's created an incredible product, but then they're not successful with it, or they give up eventually because they couldn't really make the money with it that they wanted.
I mean, I've seen a lot. I mean, every industry has this. I've seen a lot of people that, go to conferences all the time, and I use my example of creating a product and a brand and then selling online, right? And they do all the work, and they go to China, and they never launch a product, and they never launch a brand, right? They do all of that. I don't know if that comes back to like fear of failure, maybe lack of confidence, putting yourself out there, courage. Sometimes I think they're afraid they're going to fail or look bad. But I agree that with you that probably the right way to do that is just to get some wins. Like this, the more frequent the wins and the small wins, getting your first customer, getting your first dollar, like getting some traction, um, solves a lot of problems for most people, because they go, wow, it really does work. Holy crap, it worked. I can't believe that. And that just like, oh, I
Yeah.
can do it, right? Because it's like, oh, Bryan can do it. Bryan's smarter than I am, but I can't do it because I'm different. Whatever the excuse or whatever the conditioning is they have in their head. So I think that's really the right approach, is to get the psychological wins for those people to get and maintain persistence, because we all know it's never a straight line. It's up. Well, being an entrepreneur is up and down. I mean, there's bumps in the road always, right? That never goes away. So it's being able to persevere through those experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
And I also liked what you said earlier about the like I would call what you're talking about like a considered approach, a considered growth
Mm.
plan, right? And for you, it seems like the metric might be identifying and finding the right partners. That feels like the best way for you to grow and maintain the ethos of the business, right? Is like, how do I find the right people who believe in the same way that I believe? They want to do this. I want to empower people that want to take action and be accountable and grow the right way and be part of this, right? Is what it feels like to me. I like that word considered. I've been using that a lot lately, and that you want the considerate person to think about it that way. And then it's like, how do I get, and for you, and then it's like, how do I get visibility of the platform in front of those people? Is that how you think about it?
Yeah, exactly. Like we realize our audience is definitely leaning towards more of the creator than the digital marketer.
Okay.
So like these people who have this passion that they really enjoy, they want to teach people, they want to build a business around, but they didn't start out as saying like, I'm going to be a digital marketer. Now what am I going to sell?
Yeah.
And so they've got to figure out the marketing part inevitably if they want to become successful. But I think that's kind of their approach. They have this passion first about creating something, and I think that that fits great with our brand, and that's what we're aiming for. And so for us, realizing we are a bootstrap company, most of our competitors are venture backed, and so they're willing to go and spend as much money as they think is maybe their lifetime value for a customer
Mm-hmm.
on ads and
Mm-hmm.
hope that they can increase that later and then investors will be happy with the growth. But for a bootstrap company, for us to go and spend like $2,500, $3,000 to acquire a customer, it just does not make sense because I'm not trying to say 3 years from now, oh, it didn't work, or oh, AI happened, and something like this. And so I want to look at ways that we can grow organically. And I've realized for myself, it's part me putting myself out there and telling everybody like, look, I'm a creator too. That's why I built this. That's what we're creating here. And yeah, figuring out how can I attract others and better network with other creators who are doing the same to kind of increase that audience.
Well, let's brainstorm live here. I'm sure you've probably done some of the ideas that I already have, but I'd love to brainstorm this. I mean, I assume, have you done workshops, case studies?
Yeah, so the yeah, case studies as well. The three things that we have right now, I guess, including
Mm-hmm.
case studies, we have the case studies of our own customers. We've got monthly live workshops we do,
Okay.
and we have our podcast, The Creator's Adventure, that
Okay.
I'm the host of that, and we interview both our customers and other creators who are course creators, community builders, and talk with them. So those are kind of the main three right now.
When I think about marketing, I'm more of a marketing guy. I'd say, well, definitely more of a marketing guy than a creator. So when I think about it, there's a book called the Cold Start Problem, and it talked about one of the lines in the book, which was great, is like people come for the tool, but they stay for the network. Is there something? And then I would pair that with like an unbelievable offer, like a no brainer offer. Is there something in what you provide now on your platform? To me, it feels like the AI coach or the AI chat. To me, this is what it feels like. Is probably your best bet. But is there something that is so compelling to a creator that you could give them like an immediate feedback loop? Hey, this our tool will do A, B, and C for you now, right now, and will help you measurably by X, Y, and Z to get them engaged with you and building that trust and credibility. And then they say, okay, I trust Bryan. I trust Heights platform. This feels legit to me. I'm going to sign up and be part of the community. Do you think about it in that framework at all? Or do you have a tool that is,
Yeah,
so compelling that
exactly.
would engage them?
Yeah, I think that is kind of my overall approach of what I think is
Okay.
the best way forward of like the product led growth.
Yep.
Because my belief is like I'm a product guy. That's what I specialize in. I'm not
Yep.
the greatest marketer of all time, but I do believe I can build one of the greatest products of all time.
Awesome.
So that's what I have to lean into. And I do believe that while if you started out your product, it's going to need some marketing to grow. But if you have the best product ever, you don't really need marketing because people are going to try it and then be so amazed that you're just going to tell all their friends. But the hard part is building that product takes a long, long time. And so what we're looking at now is, I think the problem we have with Heights AI Chat, Heights AI Coach is, in some ways we're so ahead with these AI features that the general creators and consumers, they don't understand what it can actually do for them. They don't actually know it can do some of these things, even though we've told them. It's just like, well, no other AI tool does that. So what do you mean it can do that too? What do you mean it can actually edit the product for me? I can't just ask it about it. And so what we're planning to do now is really kind of refresh our onboarding experience, that we have like a course generator kind of feature, but it's not like too complex, but it's impressive when you see it right away that, okay, I put in this idea, I got feedback, I got a draft outline. But what we're thinking about is having you fill out just a couple pieces of information, and then having Heights AI not only create the draft course, but go and kind of set up your whole account. And so, as you said, you get that feedback loop right away and see like, oh wow, here's my account. It's got my branding. It's got colors that I like. It's got a course created for me already, and you get to see that vision a lot quicker and a lot more like concretely as a creator. So yeah, product wise, that is our next focus, pretty much. But then other than that, I think something I've maybe struggled with is I don't want to be selling courses, because I feel like it's almost unethical in a way, for me in my position. And so I feel like it would be seen weird if I'm selling courses, but I'm trying to sell the software, and I don't know, someone's going to judge me on that is my worry internally. And so my position and my aim for that, which I do like, is that I want to make any course content or anything that we provide either free or as affordable as possible, just something that you pay for just to make sure you actually do it.
Yeah.
So that way the end goal is, I want you to use the software. That's what we're building. And if we can make you successful by going through these courses, you're going to use the software longer. So
Yes.
it's a win for me. And that's my view on it. But I think that's held me back a little bit from promoting some kind of content, which could be like really good, like top of funnel content to attract more leads. And I think I've maybe overcome that enough that now in our community, we've got a community, creatorclimb.com. It's almost 10,000 members at this point. It's built on Heights platform. And we've got two main courses in it. We've got the live workshops in there, our community, of course. And we're going to be introducing some new things to it really soon. And before it was a little bit confusing because we had these separate courses and things like that. We're going to break it down now into just, there's a free tier, free community, a plus tier, and then a complete tier. And it's a one-time payment. You get everything that's in that tier, and you get everything that gets added to it later. So there's no subscription to worry about.
I like
And
that.
I'm thinking that we'll be able to use that as a good way to get people's foot in the door, because I know with a lot of creators, it's a process that they go through. And like you talked about, like with the examples of e-commerce, that people go and find a product, they order the product, but they still don't launch the business. And with a kind of creator focused product like this, there's a lot that the creator has to commit to before they can really use the product. They've really got to decide, I am making this course, I am making this community, and they have to do a lot of work because they're building a business. And so my thought is, we can capture a lot of those people. Instead of them only hearing about us once in a podcast or an ad, they can join our community. They can learn from ourselves and from other creators there. And then when they're ready, then they can upgrade and actually purchase the software.
A couple
So what do you
thoughts.
think about that?
Yeah, a couple thoughts. You might have already tested some of these, but number one, I hate the free idea. And the only reason I say that is I find that people without skin in the game, especially what we're talking about, requires follow through, right? A significant amount of follow through and persistence. So, like, I feel like there should be at least some nominal amount. But what if you flipped it a little bit? What if you charged more than a nominal? And I was thinking like $50, $100, something like that, nominal amount, right? Something that got a little bit of skin in the game, that, you know what, it's not $1 and it's not $1,000, right? But what if you made it more money? What if you made it $300 or $500, and by going through the system and the process, earn the money back? So you actually launch the product and get the first customer and get the money back.
Exactly. Yeah. We've tried this, but I don't know that we've really tried it enough. And I should look at the numbers, because I really believe it can work.
I think
But
so.
with our course T-30 launch, the one offer that we've made before was, okay, you buy the course, it's $200.
Yep.
And then if you upgrade to the Heights Pro plan, if you decide to upgrade right away, then like you'll get it for free because it's normally free in our Pro plan. And if you actually go and then launch your course in the 30 days, like we teach you, we'll give you $100 actually. So you'll get paid to take this course. And but if they don't do it, then they bought the course for $200, and
Yeah.
even if they do it, they're now a subscriber. So we're just kind of giving them a discount on their subscription, and I think that has potential. So I know we've tried it once or twice, but not at maybe a big enough scale to have enough data.
Have
So
you
yeah, I'm interested in that.
have you read the
Our
book
free tier, I can
Monetizing?
tell you, it is really limited.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, what was that?
No, I interrupted you. Go ahead,
I was
Brad.
going to say the free tier, it is really limited. It's basically just the community area, and it's certain parts of the community. It's not the full community. And so you have to have the paid tier to get access to our AI course and some other content that we're going to be releasing really soon. And then you have to get the complete tier to get the T-30 launch about learning how to build a course, to get to the live workshops, and get to everything else. So you're not going to get access to any of that stuff without paying something. And that's $99 and $199.
Okay, I got a couple other ideas. I just recently joined a community, and they offered some free training in the classroom. And then by leveling up through a tiered structure of points, you unlocked level 2, 3, and 4. So let's just use yours as level 1, level 2, level 3. And the way that you're gathering points is you're getting somebody else to like a comment or like something that you've contributed to the discussion, right? So the idea is they're creating that network effect, right? And that engagement and your reward. Now, granted, I figured out how to like hijack the system, but most people won't figure that out and will just actually just do what they're supposed to do. And then that creates the network effect, right? Because I go and I do 5 posts and now 5 people like it. And then it's 5 more. It's just creating, additional network effect of each node spreading out and growing the virality of it, right? And keeping the engagement high. So I love that idea from a business perspective, because the people that don't do that aren't really there, and they're probably not going to be serious anyway. So that might be like a leveling up process to unlock level 2 and level 3. Also on the monetary front, have you ever read the book Monetizing Innovation?
No, I haven't.
Highly, highly recommend it. I'll butcher his name. I believe his last name is Ramanujan. And it's a lot of people think it's like the Bible of pricing for SaaS. I read it last year when I was advising. Fascinating book. And what it talks about is how to get pricing right. And he's part of a huge consulting agency now that will charge you a significant amount of 6 figures to help you get your pricing right on your SaaS, if you'd like. But the book is amazing, and it will give you a bunch of questions to ask your user base to really understand, because getting pricing right is so difficult, right? I'm throwing out 250, 500. I don't know if that's right or not. You're at 100 and 200. Like, I don't know if that, you don't know if that's right either. But by asking in the book, there's a bunch of questions to ask and to find out what creates enough value in your user's mind that they'll stick with it. Because I've got a lot of friends, they won't go to a conference unless it costs X amount of dollars or above, because they think that is their filter for quality other attendees. Right? So sometimes charging too little, it's like luxury goods, right? It's too little is actually it gives a negative effect to the software or the training. It's not worth it, right? It's not worth it because it's only $100. It's probably garbage. So I'm not saying that it is, or that is the right way to think about it, but there's a lot of people even subconsciously think about pricing that way. And you see it all the time. Certain categories of physical products are that way. Other categories are not. If it's a salt and pepper shaker, it's $3 versus $12. I'm buying the $3 one. It doesn't matter if there's no other differences. Beauty, completely different ballgame. Like the more you charge and the smaller the amount they give you, it seems like more women buy it. It's a half an ounce and it's $120. It's got to be gold inside of there, right? So each category or product is different, but I would highly recommend at least maybe using some of those questions from Monetizing Innovation to really understand like where is the right threshold. And you could even go, ideally you'd want to model out the avatar of the people that have gone through and launched, right? And so what would they have paid at the
Yeah.
beginning, and asking
Yeah.
that.
Well, yeah. Well, this comes back to like that, I guess, the issue of my own concern that I don't want to sell the course for too much, and people think we're somehow trying to trick them. I don't know, but I guess I
But give
should
them the
ask
money
my
back.
audience that of like what would, yeah, yeah, or that too. But yeah, so I guess that's where I got to think about it more. Because I know like from myself having very low priced courses, so like $99 or below, that's the kind of course that people will buy and then they don't actually go through it
That's
because
right.
it wasn't that expensive.
That's right.
And but the 997 course, they're going to go and do it because you just paid a grand on it. So yeah, maybe our more expensive options, like the higher tier, it should cost more maybe
It,
for that program.
and then I love the giving back. I mean, if you don't
Yeah,
want to do that, right? Because you want your first of all, I wouldn't worry about perception, Brian. What you're doing is empowering the entrepreneurs, and some people are going to like me, some people are going to hate me, some people are going to love me. At the end of the day, I can only do so much. I can't control that, and I just come to terms with that a long time ago, right? I can't please everybody all the time. So some people aren't going to like what you do, and that's okay. As long as you can be okay with it. With that being said, if you wanted to reinforce the idea that you're supporting the entrepreneurs, hey, listen, it's $997 up front. If you launch the product and get your first customer, we give you $997 back, because our goal is to get you off that 0 to 1, because the gap between 0 and 1 is far larger than 1 to 2, right? It's not even close. It's
yeah,
50 times larger than it is going from 1 to 2. So I think that would just reinforce your messaging. Personally, I think charging more, higher value, than giving it back would reinforce what your I can come back to ethos, but I feel like your ethos is for you and your business.
yeah, yeah. That's really helpful. I guess I will take a look at that book. My only other concern is the lower price offer. The reason we were
Mm-hmm.
thinking that is the community area and everything. That's our like foot in the door offer to kind of
Mm.
capture leads. And then that's something we can run ads against. That's something we can promote way heavy because people will sign up for it. It's not a big thing to buy. And then we can still focus most of our marketing on talking about the software. And I worry if maybe we have to, are we promoting too much of the course and not talking about the software enough if we end up
Mm.
having to promote the course because it's like a 997 offer. I'd rather people know me from the software first, but then they take the course as their first step. I don't
I
know. It's something to think about.
I think of the course as a tool in your tool belt, but the tool belt is the software.
Yeah.
So the course is not the end all be all. But at the end of the day, Brian, I've learned a lot of stuff in business in the last decade or so. I'm wrong most of the time. That's what I've learned. So I stop guessing and I just market and I test. And then I get a feedback loop and then I adjust. So I test and I hypothesis, I get feedback, I iterate, and I try again. And so the answer really is we don't know. You and I don't. We could sit here all day. We probably still couldn't figure out the answer. You've got to test it. You've got to then iterate off of that. And my feeling is you'll
Yeah.
find something that resonates, some message that really resonates. And then I would highly recommend you to lean into that, right? Whether that's around the course, around the software, you're going to find, hey, this hook worked and this value proposition worked. And, it's really, I interviewed a guy the last episode, which will come out soon. And he was rideshare done right. It's a rideshare, competing with Uber and Lyft that get all the money goes
Yeah. Yeah.
to the driver. And I love that tagline, right? You'll find, and that's what he found resonated, right? It was like, started off rideshare simplified. And I'm like, it's not as great. He's like, yeah, we found it didn't work as well. Rideshare done right was what resonated. And I think you'll find that messaging and that value prop that really resonates with your customer base. And I don't think of all of your members as the same. I think really building out cohorts of you've got power users, you've got people
Yeah,
that just
well, that's
launched.
exactly what we're doing. So we
Yep.
kind of have like the messaging and value prop for the software. Now we're figuring out, well, what is that for this community to bring more people in earlier? And so, yeah, I'm really glad to like dig into this with you because I always want to hear and keep an open mind to anything anybody else is thinking, regardless of their experiences or what they already know about my business, because I want to stay open to where might I be completely wrong, where might a completely different approach actually be better. But I want to make sure to mention, actually, I love the game idea that you mentioned about helping people engage in that way. And that was very reassuring to hear, because that is the next thing that we have coming
Oh,
up.
is that right?
And yeah, so I'm not ready to share all the details about it, but we're basically gamifying the experience of becoming a course creator, a community builder, and having you kind of make it feel like you're building your business is playing a game, that you're going to get these different rewards for it, either through our software, through points and things you can earn, and through engagement with the community. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting that out there, and I think it'll be a big help.
I absolutely love that. So I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade, and I've got 2 daughters, 15 and 13. And we play games, board games, we play video games, VR, we've done all sorts of stuff. And that's one idea I've always had in the back of my head is, how do I gamify entrepreneurism so that, people play games with no output, no reward, no outcome except some dopamine, hit, right? And they play this game. Yet, if you could gamify it and play a game that at the end of the day, you had a real business, I mean, come on. What an amazing experience and an output. And you go, wait a minute, I just played this. I mean, how many hours do people play Candy Crush or whatever mobile game that they're playing right now, right?
Exactly, yeah. And if you think about it, I believe like the challenge is for a lot of entrepreneurs is that when you're trying to do something in business, the feedback loop is either slower or just not really there. It's not tight enough. But the game, like the video game companies have all made it so like there's these super fast feedback loops happening. And then you're like, okay, that was some kind of positive experience. I earned something from this action.
Yes.
And so if you can create that for yourself in business, either without a tool like Hive's platform or with it, then it's going to make the process easier, even if the thing that you're earning is kind of trivial, because it gives you this sense of progression.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a genius move. I think micro wins is the way I would think about it. Like it's almost like micro tasks and micro wins. That's what you're absolutely right. That's what the games do. You've got this feedback loop that is so fast and so short that you're like, I know this. I know how it works, and I still get tricked into it when you play a game, right? Experience points or skins over the years, whatever it is, you level. There's a level. I'm level 60. I'm level 61. You level up. Even though when you know what's happening, it's still hard to not get the benefit of it, I guess you could say. So, I mean, I think you're utilizing our psychology with us for the benefit of the entrepreneur. Ooh, wait, there might be a tagline in there, Brian.
Looking at the things that social media video games have done, that should be my tagline, you're saying?
I'm just saying.
Something around that?
Yeah, gamify psychology, entrepreneurship, creator. There's got to be a tagline in there somewhere. Gamify your psychology. Gamify. No, I don't like that. Gamify. There's got to be something. I don't know. I don't have anything off the top of my head. There's got to be something that works.
I think there is. We'll talk with ChatGPT about it.
Yeah, that's a good discussion partner for this, I think. I think they'll come up with the 15 to 20 ideas around those permutations of those words. So, well, Brian, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with me and talk about this. If I can ever help with anything else, please let me know. We're on the similar journey in terms of our own businesses. I definitely want to fully implement that. There's no option in my head. There are businesses that use AI and there are businesses that used to be. I don't think there's going to be anything in the next few years where, maybe some really random business that doesn't have that, but I think you have to utilize it to level up and change the conversation and do more critical thinking, higher value critical tasks.
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to go. So
definitely.
I really appreciate it. And thanks for spending time with us today.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
You bet. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with friends. And if you're an entrepreneur interested in coming on the show, visit therobgreenshow.com to get in touch. Stay curious and never stop learning, improving, or growing.